Hi guys, so today I will be doing a video on showing you how to do two zips. One is for a bag closure and one will be for a inside zip pocket. So I'm Becky Alexander Frost and I own RJF Makes. RJF Makes is a brand that I started a few years ago, and yeah, it was all to do with bag making at the start, and now I've actually in the past 18 months done designing patterns for Sewing Quarter, and I'm starting to launch my own patterns this month, later on in the month. So if you can hear me, please give me a thumbs up and a heart, just to make sure you can hear me loud and clear, please. Thank you. Right, so in the comments below, if you want to ask any questions as you go along, I may not be able to answer them as I'm going along, but if you leave the comments below, I will answer any questions after this live feed. I want to get as much as I can in this tutorial, in today's show basically. So if you've not made a bag before, or if you're made a bag before, say down below so I can get a better idea of what I need to teach you in the long run. So because I want this to be a weekly thing, if you understand where I'm coming from. So let me get into the tutorial. So there is a blog post which I posted earlier on in the week regarding what I'm going to be showing, and with all the things that you may need to make the free bags. I've however made two of the smaller bags. The smaller bags don't have zip pockets in, and then the larger bag has a zip pocket. So the reason why I'm actually, and I'm sorry about this, but the reason why I'm actually doing this tutorial is because it's a gift for Christmas, and unfortunately I'm running out of time to actually make a few gifts, and this is actually going off to Australia. So this one's for my niece. She is in the Australian Scouts and she travels around the country doing hiking and stuff like that, but they're not allowed to take sweets. So I need to put her inside zip pocket so she can hide her sweets, because every girl needs a chocolate. Not Australian chocolate. I don't like Australian chocolate. Right, so I'm going to get into the tutorial. So I'm going to move the camera down so you can actually see what I'm doing and you'll still be able to hear my voice. Ask any questions as I go along, and then I will definitely answer when I've finished this live feed. Right. I'm hoping you can see this. Just give me a little bit of a thumbs up and stuff like that. So in the pattern, in the blog post, I've told you to do two zips. One for an 8-inch zip and one for a 6-inch zip. I've used a number 3 zip, which is what you generally use on bag making, not bag making, in clothes making. It's the most regular, easiest ones to find on the market. I will be moving on with more tutorials with better bag zips, but I want to start off with the basics because I know a lot of the people that are in the group are beginners. So I've already started doing a bit of prep. Can you see that? Yes, you can. So I've got my number 3 zip and I've got my 8-inch zip. I've already put one tab on the end, and I'm just going to show you how to do the other tab. So if I move the zip pull out the way, you've got a right side and a wrong side. So on my wrong side, I've interfaced it with buckram interfacing. So don't worry if you don't know what buckram is. Buckram is what they use in the upholstery industry. It's basically, in America they call it SF101. It's like a woven fuse. This is basically a woven interface, and I've used a Buckram Light. So I'm putting right side of the tab onto the zip right side. I'm using Wonder Clips. I'm just going to sew that using 1/4 inch seam allowance. Make sure you reverse stitch at the start and at the end as well. The machine that I'm using is an Elna Excellence 720 Pro, but you can do this bag on any machine out there. My advice is to buy a walking foot and to buy larger needles. I use anything from a 14 needle to a size 16 needle. So my next thing I need to do is flip this to the right side, and sometimes you may need to press it, but this stuff you generally don't need to press. So I'm going to sew 1/8 inch away from the zip. And then the next thing you need to do is, you'll notice, is your zip tabs are a bit wider than your zip itself. So you need to trim back the zip tab on both sides. Right, so I've made it so it's the same width as the zip. So I've basically got 2 tabs on the end of the zip. Now this is what this zip is going to be for the outside closure of the bag. So I'm going to pop this to one side and move on to my inside zip pocket before I can finish using this zip here. So right, so my inside zip pocket, you'll need to use the inside zip pocket lining isn't interfaced. I've made it as easy as possible. Yeah, I'm left to right because I don't know how to alter the camera around. If anybody knows how to do that on the live, let me know. I've noticed that just. Right, so sorry about that. Right, so before I attach this to my actual body bag lining, I basically need to draw on my zip pocket placement. So I measured from the top 1 inch down. I found the center of the top of the actual pocket lining, and then I measured down 1 inch. Because I'm using a 6-inch zip for the inside zip pocket, I then from the center measured left, I think this might be all right, 2.5 inches for the first, and then 2.5 inches on the right. So basically that's your first top line. Then from that top line you measure down 3/8 of an inch down, and then you draw another line which is parallel to the top line. So basically ignore the center line at the moment. I've only drawn the bottom line. Then to join, you need to join up those 2 lines at the end. So you basically have a letterbox shape. From the 2 ends you need to measure in 1/2 inch and draw 2 parallel. Is it vertical lines, 2 vertical lines. So, and then from those vertical lines you need to draw find the center of your top and bottom line, so hence why I've got a middle line. Okay, it doesn't have to be exactly in the middle because that will become a cutting line. We won't be sewing inside this box anyway, so don't worry about it. Then from the 2 little inside lines you need to draw a triangles from each side. Now I will explain what this is when I come to this point when I'm cutting out the actual letterbox. Okay, so the next thing you need to do is on your lining bag body piece is find the center of your 10-inch top, because it's 10 inches by 8 inches. Find the center of the 10-inch. Once you find the center, measure down 1 1/4 inches. I've only drawn it on just so you can actually see the measurements. So the next thing you do is, with your quilter's rule, measure obviously down your 1 1/4 inches. With your right side of your lining facing up, I'm hoping you can see this, yep. Then find the center of your zip pocket with the right side facing down, so that's right side, and you match up the 2 halves. So where I found the half of the zip pocket lining top and half of the zip pocket, the body lining, you need to pin this zip pocket into place, like so. Take away your quilter's rule, and then the next thing you're going to do is sew around the outer lines of the rectangle. You don't need to sew anywhere in the middle, so those middle lines, the triangles, and the center line, we won't be sewing anywhere near that at the moment. And also remember, when you're actually sewing around the outer square, the outer rectangle, you will need to reverse stitch at the start and at the end. That's just for when we're turning it the right side facing out. It means that your stitches won't come undone. So I'm going to use a basic stitch length of a 2.4, and it doesn't matter where I actually start in that rectangle at the moment. So if you, like I say, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask, and I will answer them as soon as this live feed is over. What's the weather like where you are? It's dull here. It's very, very foggy. I'm making sure when I come to a corner, my needle is actually down, and then I pivot on that corner, and then I sew for the remainder of that until I come to another corner, making sure my needle is down. I'm lucky because my machine actually, you can program it for every time the machine stops, the needle goes down, but sometimes you may have to hand crank it to make sure the actual needle is down when you actually pivot around that corner. Right, so I'm just coming to the end of that row of stitches. I've just done a reverse to lock my stitches into place. I'm going to remove the pins and any little bits of thread. Right, so where have I put my scissors? There they are. Right, you can see I've I've used the wrong colour thread, sorry, but I've sewn all the way around the actual the outer lines. So now I'm going to make a small little cut on this centre line in the centre. So the way I do that is I normally fold it in half and get my sharp scissors, my Fiskars scissors, and snip in the centre. Just a little bit. So I've basically started a little hole here. I'm going to squeeze my scissors in and cut all the way to this line here. Then I'm going to cut up the triangle piece as close as I can to that stitching line in that corner. But remember, do not cut through that stitch line because it will come undone when we turn it round. Once I've cut that corner, I'm then going to come down back and cut down to this corner here. Okay, so I'll do that bit first. Okay, so as you can see, I've cut into the corner and I've now got a triangle. I'm going to do the same over to this one here. I've just noticed my husband's watching. He should be at work. I noticed basically you need to cut all the way over to this side here. So we're just going to repeat that process. Say hi, Mr. Frost. Right, so now I've basically got a hole. Don't worry, because remember it's right side to right side. So when we pull this to the correct side, it means that you'll be able to see the lining. So we're now pulling this lining zip pocket, the hole, so it's onto the back of your lining. What you need to do is finger press, let me just bring that down, finger press as much as you can before you take it to the ironing board. When you press your letterbox, you need to press it from the right side of the actual lining of the bag. So I'm just going to go over to my iron and give it just a quick press. Right, so if you find that you've got some, I haven't on mine, but if you find that you've got some creases in the corners here and here on the right side, just flip your lining, your zip pocket lining back through and then cut a bit more into where the triangles are meeting your sewn line. Then feed it back through and then just give it a press. It doesn't matter if you've actually got, can you see that? If you've got creases on the back of the lining, that doesn't matter. But it does matter if you've got it on your actual lining. So, many of you will know my next thing that I'm going to bring out is my favourite tool ever. So, sorry, quilter's tape. So, I like putting zips in with quilter's tape or wash away tape, or a lot of people in America will know it as Wonder Tape. I cannot go. Someone's just said they can't hear me. Can everybody hear me? Right, okay, so I cannot go out without quilter's tape. I use quilter's tape in all my bag making, so it might be one of the supplies that you might need to get in if you are starting bag making. So you can, this roll here is a supersized one. I get this from Amazon. It's called wash away tape. You can buy it in different thicknesses. I buy it in a 3mm or a 4mm one. So I will put the link to where it is in the Amazon UK. If you're America or Australia, please can you help me out and put a link in the comments where to buy it from, because I don't know what suppliers you've got in your own countries. Right, so on the wrong side, so you've got your right side, and on your wrong side, on the wrong side of your zip pocket, we need to run tape along the top of the box and the bottom of the box. So I'm just running a small amount. If you haven't got tape, don't worry, you might have something like this. It's a what you use in quilting for EPP, so don't worry, you can use this. It's not a must to have the quilting tape, and I know a lot of people don't like using stuff that's got a lot of plastic on, because quilting tape has got a plastic backing. So I'm just running tape top and bottom of the zip pocket. So as you can see, I've got tape top and bottom. You need to peel off the backing of both of those tapes. And I cut my nails the other day, so it's not going to come off very easily. There you go. Right. So I've peeled it off. You need to put your zip on your flat surface. On your flat surface with your zip pointing up. Then you need to get the tape side of your lining and match it just over the zip area. I will actually show the camera better. And press it down well with your fingers. So you have your zip in place. Now it's up to you whether you want the pull on the left hand side or the right hand side. I'm a that's left. I'm so dyslexic. I don't know my lefts and rights properly. So that's, I go always left to right. That's how I naturally open up any bag anyway. So what I'm going to do now is sew 1/8 of an inch all the way around this box here, as close as I can to the zip. Now you can use a zipper foot at this point, or you can be lazy like me and keep your walking foot on, and then what I do is when I get near this zip pull is make sure my needle is down. I actually lift up my zipper foot and then carry on sewing all the way around, but I move this as I go along. So I always start off in the bottom hand corner because it's the less seen place of an inside zip pocket. I'm making my stitch length for size 2.8 to 3. And I'm just going to reverse a bit at the start and at the end. And don't forget to pivot when you come to the corner and making sure your needle is down. As you can see, I'm getting so close to my zipper pull, I'm going to lift up my footer and push this zip out of the way. Now sometimes it gets stuck underneath the zip, underneath the foot. Just get a pin in and push it out of the way. Put your foot back down and carry on sewing. And once again, I'm getting quite close to my zip pull. Just going to pull it back up, hook my unpicker into the zip pull and pull it out of the way. And remember to lock your stitch at the end or reverse your stitch. Right. Just cut off that piece of thread. So now I have my zip sewn into place. Okay, so as you can see, I've gone 1/8 of an inch all the way around. Okay. So you need to turn it the right. Need to turn it round so your line on your lining side. Then you'll notice at the bottom you'll need to bring that up to match the lining top. So you need to pin this into place. So I'm just going to pin it, and I tend to pin where I put, so obviously my zip front's here, and then I pin it into place here, because I actually sew with the bag lining out the way anyway. So what you can do is, if this bag lining where the zip front is getting in the way, you can actually pin this together or clip it together. So what I've done is folded it over, and I'm just going to clip it there, and the same with this here. And then I'm just going to fold the top bit over and clip that to those two clips. That means I've got easy access to sew all the way around my zip pocket lining. So I'm just going to do that now. So there's only 3 sides of this zip pocket you have to actually sew together, because you've generated a fold at the bottom of the zip. I'm using a 1 centimeter seam allowance, just so if my niece overfills this with candy or sweets, depending on what country, it will basically last. If you do anything, if you know you overfill your zip pockets like most women do with their makeup and stuff like that, is to give a generous seam allowance just in case that zip pocket comes undone, because once you've sewn this zip pocket, the whole bag together, it will be quite hard to open up the bag to re-sew that lining together again. So just make sure you give yourself a good amount of actual amount of seam allowance around. So I'm just going to take the zips, the clips away, and I'm just going to give this just a quick press because it's lost its crispness. Okay, so that is your lining zip pocket finished. Just double check to make sure it opens up so you can actually put your hand, she can put her hand in it, or whoever you're actually making it for, or yourself. Okay, so now we've done that, we need to move on to the actual body of the outer bag itself. So I've actually already started my bag. So I've created the front panel. I will create the back panel with you. I do use starch. I actually starch everything before I actually get sewing. It adds a bit of body. Because I've got only one type of stabiliser in this bag, I've got no foam or fleece, I would generate literally say starch everything, apart from the only thing I haven't starched is the cork fabric at the bottom. So I've sewn the top panel and the cork base together, and I've also added my logo because you never know. And I did use my Cricut, I call it Cricut, but Cricut, to embellish it, and obviously it looks like she's camping. But so I'm going to do the same, show you how to actually do that. So I'm using calico, and I've put interfacing on the back of it, and I'm using cork, and I've interfaced the back of that as well. You don't have to interface cork, but because this cork was quite thin, I wanted to interface it to give it a better stability. Is that a word? Stability, to basically give it a bit more strength. And I know as a child they will bash it about quite a lot. So you've got your body top, outer body top, and your outer body base. I'm just going to line those up at the bottom and stitch stitch them together. Stitch them two together at the bottom using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, or if you're European it would be a 1 cm seam allowance, and using a stitch length 3 as it's a cork base. Now if you're not using cork and you just want to use fabric, you can use a smaller stitch length. I'm just using a larger stitch length because it perforates the actual cork, and you don't want to keep perforating it that much so it tears. So I've now sewn those together. I'm going to flip it so it's right side facing out, and the seam, this seam, I need it to be pointing towards the base, and then I'm just going to finger press it because I can't iron this, but I can iron this side. You then need to top stitch along on the base side 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch away from it, so it just holds that seam into place. What did I use on this one? Ah, right, yeah. Don't forget to ask questions as you go. Right, so just make sure they all match up. Yep, that's my worst nightmare, is that I've sewn the wrong side. Right, so we're going back to the 8-inch outer zip, the one that has the tabs on, and I'm going to start from the front bag outer lining, bag outer, rather than starting with. So, with your zip, if you fold it in half, tabs matching the tabs together, like so, find the center, and give it a mark. Where's my pen? There it is. So if you mark it on both zip tapes, I'm using a friction pen. On light fabric it will disappear and fingers crossed won't come back. So I've actually put centre marks on both sides of my zip. Then I'm going to get my top panel of my outer panel, my front one, and find the centre of the top as well. This is so I know I'm actually going to get my zip in the centre and I haven't got the tabs uneven each side. And I've done that. So along this top, like before on the zip, inside zip pocket, I'm going to run quilter's tape all the way along the top. And here. You'll get used to me using quilter's tape. It will save you a lot of time in the long run, and it means there's less clipping and less pinning to go. So what I'm going to do now is peel off this backing tape, and still I can see just faintly where that centre mark was. I'm now going to work out which is my left and right, where I want the pull to actually work from, left or right. So I like my pull going left or right, so I'm going to make sure when I turn it the right side facing down the zip, because you need to do right side body to right side zip, and matching the top bit here to that top edge. If that makes sense. I can probably explain that better in the comments. What a melon. Okay, so I've now actually put my zip into place, and I'm going to... Jan, can you share it please? That'd be brilliant, thank you. Now I've actually put the zip into place, I'm going to run, once again, more quilter's tape along the top, or wash away tape along the top. Now my tabs are overhanging at the moment, so I'm actually not running it all the way across the tabs. I will show you in a minute. Right, so I've actually run quilter's tape, but I've stopped because because obviously that's a bit of a waste of tape, and I know I get quite a lot of rolls a week, so if I can save myself a few pennies I will. So obviously you've run quilter's tape all the way to where the body ends here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is peel back that quilter's tape, and then I'm going to get the lining that doesn't have a zip pocket on, and getting the 10-inch top bit, I'm going to find the centre of the 10-inch top on the right side of the fabric. Okay, so from that mark I'm going to pop that right side to the zip on the wrong side, so remember your zip is wrong side facing up, and stick it into place. Now my lining is wider because I want to trim it back. I want to show you what will happen if you actually do cut your lining actually too big. So I've now got my lining attached to my sandwich. So here I've got my lining, my zip with tabs, and my outer. Now this is where you can actually put a zipper footer on, and I'm going to do that on my actual machine. Right, so my machine, I've got to just take a few things off. So I'm taking off my walking foot and putting my zipper foot on. And because my needle's in the centre, because I've got the wrong plate on, I'm going to actually change the plate of my actual machine too. Just means with this plate I can move it left to right. So I'm now putting on my zigzag plate on my bed. So I'm moving my foot over to the left hand side, to the left hand side. Right, so where your actual zip is, you'll feel where the actual zip is. You need to sew as close as you can to where you feel the zip. So my zip is around about here. So you've got to make sure your needle is quite close to that zip to give it a nice crisp finish. And I'm going from the complete start of the tab, where the tab is. And I'm using a standard stitch length. So I've come to where the pull is. So just lift up the foot, open up the sandwich, and move that zip down and out of the way. This is why it's best, if you've never done a zip before, to make sure you've got your zipper foot on. But a lot of people, like myself included, don't use a zipper foot when they're actually doing a zip. And if you've still got your walking foot on, it might not lift up high enough for it to actually hold, to actually move the zip puller out the way. Right, so I'm just coming to the end. Oh. Right, so you need to go to your iron, open these up, so, and then press it. So I normally press from the lining side, and then I'm just going to press that out, that nice and crisp. Oops. So that's basically the right side of the lining facing out and the right side of the actual outer part. So now you need to stitch 1/8 of an inch as close to where that zip is from the top. This is called top stitching. And this will hold your lining and your outer bag out the way. Now don't worry, my lining is bigger, I'm going to trim it back. Just move that zip pull out the way as you go along. Now I'm just going to basically repeat the same process of what I've just done to the other side of the zip. So quilter's tape, once again, run it along the zip. Peel off the backing. Get your main outer body, find the centre top. Match up that centre top to the top of the centre of your zip. And mine's disappeared through the heat. What a melon. Stick that into place. There you go. So stick that into place, flip it over, repeat the tape again. So if you have bag made before, what's your favourite pattern and pattern designer? Let's give some shout outs to other designers for people that are new to actual bag making. Peel off the backing. So this is where the actual other fruit and veg are available. They are. So this is the one with my actual zip. You need to find the actual top of the actual lining, and that's obviously the part that's closest to your zip. And give that a mark. Okay. Okay, so from that mark, you're going to right side. And now it will be right side of the lining to right side of the one with the zip. So you basically match up the centre. And stick that into place. So now you have your lining from the zip pocket lining. Then you have your lining from the other side, then you have your outer from the front, and now you have your back outer. So it's coming a big sandwich now. So we need to sew along the top as close as you can to that zip. And I'm coming near the pull, so I'm lifting up that foot and I'm moving the zip out of the way and carry on sewing. Right, so now I'm going to open that right side facing out. I'm just going to give it a bit of a finger press, flip it over, and obviously right side facing out of the outer as well. Close up that zip and just go to your iron and give that a good press too. Once again, I'm just going to top stitch along the edge as close as I can to that zip, around about 1/8 of an inch away. So now, before I forget, I'm going to change my plate and my foot. Put my walking foot back on. Ooh. Just like dressmaking, you have to get used to actually basically putting different feet on your machine. It's the same as in with bag making, but when you become a confident bag maker, you will generally only use the walking foot. That foot, that one. If you actually want any tutorials on oops, my scissors are gone. If you actually want any tutorials on how to operate your machine, or why I'm doing certain things on my machine as I go along when I'm bag making, please put in the comments below, because then I can actually work out the fact that most of you are complete beginners. So right, so you'll notice on my lining it actually doesn't come to the base. There's a reason for that, is so I don't have a baggy lining inside. And you'll notice that I've got excess over. I'm just going to trim back the lining to match my outer bag. Just drop those scissors, go to the second pair. And the same on the other side. It's just so you know that your lining is going to match your outer bag when you come to sew it all together. Right. So the next thing you need to do is open up your zip halfway. Or as my mum used to go, halfway, when we were walking to school, when we were crossing the road. Halfway, all the way. Sorry, Mum, if you're watching. Right, so I'm now putting the back right sides together on the outer part and right sides together on the lining. But there is key areas where you need to match up. So you need to match up these two pieces here. So when you come to turn the bag the right way out, it will give it a bit of a classier finish. So before I go any further, I'm going to clip. I do that with my kids too. I'm going to clip that part together and then obviously flip it over and do the same for that. So basically it just gives it a really classier finish once we turn the bag right side facing out. Now we're going to go to the zip. That's the next key area, and you'll see the zip tab is actually trying its hardest to push up towards here. Try and push it towards the outer. So you're just going to squash it as much as you can towards the outer. And you need to clip that part there. Same with the other side of the tab. So we're pushing the tab as much as we can, but making sure those seams are pointing towards this way, and we're trying to push those together, matching up the seams as well. Okay, and then I'm just going to peg. Did I spin you down a bit? Just going to peg all the way. Well, when I say peg, I mean clip all the lining on both sides. I'm leaving the bottom part at the moment. So I'm only putting like 1 or 2 pegs in each side. Okay, then we're going to do the same with the outer body. Going to pop a peg here, a clip here, and on the same on the other side as well. Then I'm going to run some clips on the base of the outer part. As well. And then on the base of the lining, you need to leave a turning gap where we're going to turn the bag out. So we're going to bag it out through the bottom of the lining. So I'm going to draw 2 marks here. I'm going to leave quite a large turning gap because I'm using cork, it's quite bulky. And I'm just going to put a peg there and a peg there. So we are going to sew using a 1 centimetre seam allowance from this mark here, going up to the corner and pivot all the way around, and we're going to go over this zip. Now I've got a special tool that you might need, or most machines will come with. You'll need a bulky seam. This will help you when you get a bulky area like the zip, where the zip tabs are. And I'm going to sew down this one long side, across the outer bottom where the cork is, and then back up the other side. I'm using a standard stitch length. My thread's a bit caught up, just bear with me. There you go. So my needle's going to be down when I get to that corner, there, and then I'm just going to lift up my foot and pivot around that corner. So here, I'm wondering if you can see that, here where the zip tab is, you are going to probably need something to help with the bulky seam. So what you need to do is, you've got a thicker side, you got a thicker side and a thinner side. I'm going to use the thicker side, lift up my foot, pop that bulky seam aid in as close as it will go to the needle, and it will help go up over that bulky area. Now as you can see, I've got this part of my foot is going up at an angle, so I lift up my foot again using my bulky seam aid, put the bulky seam aid up against where that seam is, and carry on sewing 3 or 4 stitches and stop. Lift up my foot again and just move the bulky seam aid a couple of millimeters so it can do a few more stitches. Then basically you can drop your foot, take out your bulky seam aid, and basically drop your foot and carry on sewing. Now where the 2 pieces of cork is, I've got the same problem. I've got the same problem as what I did with the zip. I'm going to have to put my bulky seam aid in and basically use the thinner side. And just sew a few stitches onto the bulky area, pop it in at the front, and then I can take it out. That will stop any stitches from jumping. So like once again I've moved it over to the bulkier side of the actual bulky Seamaid, and using the bulky one for the tab. Now if you haven't got one of these, you can actually just use a bit of folded up cardboard. My lighting nearly fell over then. Remember to reverse stitch at the start and at the start, at the start and at the stop. So I locked my stitches on both of these marks. Or a needle case. Yeah, you can actually use a needle case. So the next thing is, if you don't want to do a boxy corners, this is the bit where you can just trim back your seam allowance and turn it the right way actually out. My niece, however, has messaged me and said she doesn't want boxy corners, so I will actually do boxy corners at a later stage in the next few weeks if you want me to. This will basically just come like a normal case. She said she wants to actually put her portable devices in this more than anything. So I'm just going to trim back the seam allowance. And cut into those corners. And trim back most of that bulky area where the actual tabs are. Trim all the way around because you don't want this bulk anywhere. Using my trusty IKEA scissors because they're great for bulk or foam. If in the comments, if you want to learn something, if you're a complete novice and you want to learn a specific thing, an area in bag making, can you put it in the comments so I know what to actually keep teaching on this channel? I'm aiming to do it once a week, between Mondays and Wednesdays. So it could be Monday, Tuesday or Wednesday. Right, so where that hole is, you need to put in your hand, open up that zip fully, grab, go all the way down to the bottom part, push it in and just slowly feed it out. Now, when I first started bag making, some of the patterns say, oh, you only need to leave a 3-inch turning gap. I'm sorry, but when you're using bulky stuff, like cork, you need a larger turning gap. So rule of thumb, give yourself 5 to 8 inches no matter what. What amount of fabric am I leaving in my seams? I cut this back because I used a really good interfacing back to just over 1/8 of an inch away from the seam. But if you're actually using some light interfacing, Teresa, you can basically leave it like to a quarter of a seam, a quarter of an inch. So I'm just going to go in, trusty chopstick, I'm using whichever end, and just poking out those corners. And this one. Okay, and pull that lining out. You're welcome. Push out that corner. Jennifer, I'll pay you later. Poke out those corners. Right. Now you'll notice it's curving in where the tabs are. If you get your pokey stick and you turn it, go right inside to the bag, and you find where that tab is and you push out that tab as much as you can without busting your seam open. So as you notice, I've got quite a lot of my tab pointing out, and repeat it for the other side. So no, not with the interfacing that I've used, Mandy. The interfacing that I've used is called Buckram. Buckram is a woven interfacing, but if you're using a normal iron-on interfacing, you tend to actually will find that they time. Okay, so if you push out as much as you can, roll out those seams. So we're rolling out those seams. And then we're just going to, hi Mr. Frost, Mr. Frost has come home. We're going to just go to the iron and press the opening inside the actual lining. Okay, and just give it a good press, right? So you can actually hand stitch this part close, or once again, if you're lazy like me, you can machine sew it. So I'm going to machine sew it. The easy option, Rebecca, the easy option. Okay. At this point, just trim off any bits of thread that you will have, because once it's inside, you don't want to put your hand in and wreck your actual good work. Then we're just going to push this inside the bag. Now my lining actually does go to the bottom now. Right to the bottom, but it's not baggy. So give your bag a good press. I can't press from the front because I've got the vinyl on, so I would press it from the back. Okay, and that's it. All over. So basically, if you want to have the measurements for the 2 cases, and this pouch here that I've just made. Go over to the blog post. I will, once this has actually ended, I will actually put the blog link into it with everything that I've used, including the machine that I've used. What if you have a Cricut machine, I've basically told you what I've used here. So I've basically listed everything that you need to know. And like I say, at the end of the day, I will answer all of the questions that you've actually put on here. Thank you, everybody. I will answer all the questions that you've put on here. But remember, if you are a bag maker beginner, don't worry. We're all here in this group to help each other out. So if I've never come across that problem before, there'll be other people that will come across that problem. So don't worry. And I've got one of the best bag makers in the world in this group, and that's Lisa Lamb. So Lisa Lamb, you're going to have to help me, back me up with some of these questions. So I'm going to be doing a live every week between Monday and Wednesdays. I will let you know at the start of or the end of each week what day I will actually be filming on. And also, some of them won't be tutorials, some of them will be Q&As. So if you're stuck on a pattern, or if you're wanting to learn about stabilizers or something like that, I can actually help you out. So, see you next week. Have a good weekend.